Gordon here from AutoSavant.com with our video review portion of the 2012 Volkswagen Tiguan SE. This particular Volkswagen Tiguan SE is the one with navigation and the sunroof. That makes it the absolute middle model that you can get in the Tiguans. And this one is a two-wheel drive model. So only front wheels are being driven in this one. You can also get this one with all-wheel drive. Below it is the S. That one gets you an inch smaller wheels. Above it is the SEL. That gets you an inch larger wheels. This one has 18s. And some other stuff. You know, if you move up to SEL, you get xenons and daytime running lights that are LEDs, of course. The 2012 Volkswagen Tiguan is refreshed for this year. If you go on the Volkswagen website, it says all new, but it's really pretty similar to the way it was last year. The exterior, as you saw in the startup photos, which, by the way, the sound underneath those is actually the sound of this car on startup and on some highway driving. You know, it carries more of the corporate face. It looks a little bit more like the Touareg these days. And inside, this steering wheel's new. There's a few new trim pieces in here. And beyond that, it's pretty similar to the way it's been dating all the way back to 2007. From a drivetrain perspective, the Tiguan is still powered by the 2-liter turbocharged engine that's so familiar across all the Volkswagens. And why not? It's a gem of a little engine. You know, there's a little bit of a delay before the turbo gets into its range of operating efficiency, but it's got a lot of punch to it. You know, right at about 3,000 RPM, it's got that elasticity of a good turbocharged motor that makes it enjoyable to drive. Sure, it doesn't have the same kind of throw up to the top of the rev band that something naturally aspirated might, but you know, in day-to-day driving, you'll really never miss it. The automatic that comes in this one is a 6-speed unit. I believe that Volkswagen still calls theirs the Tiptronic units. It's not a dual clutch model. It's still got a torque converter. Updated for this year, though, it's a torque converter with a little bit more of a brain to it. So while you're coasting, you can go into full detached mode to allow the car to coast. As a result, the fuel economy in this has improved, I think, 15% over last year, both city and highway. So city, it's 22, and on the highway, it's 27, at least EPA rated. We've been seeing numbers about 24, 24 and a half as we've been driving, which is quite good considering the way it's been driven. You know, we've been far from being friendly to it. So again, this is the SE model with nav and the sunroof. This one in two-wheel drive comes in right above $30,000. If you added the 4Motion or the Volkswagen branded all-wheel drive system, that adds about $2,000 to it. The base, I think they somehow get in at about 24, and you can get the top level SEL. I think it's up to about $38,000. If you've seen any of our other reviews before, then you know one thing I will always attempt to mention is the comfort of the seat. It's true that, you know, your steering wheels, you're connected to the car and the pedal feel and all that, but if the seat's not comfortable, it's really hard to make that up in my mind. And good news there, the seat in the Tiguan is quite comfortable. You know, it's narrow, it's, you know, not really built for somebody who's got an extremely wide frame. It's got decent support, it's been comfortable all along. What's not so great, though, is the driving position. At least for my preference, there's no way for me to get to that appropriate proportion of distance to the pedals. You notice I'm pretty bent in the legs here. And distance to the steering wheel to the point I'm comfortable. And to me, I guess, the question is like, so what does that actually mean? Well, it means that, you know, if you want to do the top steering wheel thing here, at least for me now, and this is a, you know, tilt telescope wheel. I've got it pulled all the way out and all the way down as far as the position goes. And there, you know, it's better, but still I'm not really able to get comfortable. So something to look at if you get a chance to test drive one. The other thing from a seating comfort perspective that I find a little bit odd is the center armrest in this falls to just about the right place. but the door armrest is quite far away, and it's significantly higher than this. You don't get a matched set. You get a narrow seat and a pretty good space before you get to the door. And I was thinking about that, and I did a little bit of reading, and I think the reason for that is the safety rating of this car. If you look up the safety ratings of the compact SUVs, this is right up at the top of those. So I think the extra space that you have between the seat and the door, this isn't one of those gaps that you typically have a huge gap in cars, but I have to believe that's there specifically to try to make this car as safe from a side impact perspective as possible. Continuing along the line of safety, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but this line on this door, is reasonably high up. It's got a reasonably high belt line. But if you look at this picture, it shows sort of the structure of this car. You can see why that belt line's there. They really do have a large beam that runs across there, and this thing has all the safety features that you'd expect to find on a small SUV. Again, so the engine in this really is a very nice unit, and it's connected to a pretty good 6-speed transmission. There are a couple of weird things about it, in my opinion, though. One is, if you run it along in normal drive mode, it fights so hard for efficiency that unfortunately it's a bit annoying. It will literally go down to 11 or 1200 RPM when you're trying to drive along and just sort of grind. It's doing everything it can to get as much bit of power out of every drop of gas that you're going to put in this thing. But in drive, it takes just a little too long for it to get going. So I find myself driving around in sport mode. Sport mode, of course, holds revs longer, keeps gears higher. But here's the weird thing about these transmissions in the Volkswagens is if you drive it in sport mode, and you'd be interested in manually controlling your own gears, which I realize not a ton of people do, but say for pulling off an exit on a highway and you want to cause a little extra engine braking, to get into the manual shift gate, you've actually got to be in drive and then move the stick over, and now you're in manual shift mode. Steering feel is very good. The ride is well controlled, well damped, and it's very German in feel. The brake pedal's nice and solid and feels good. All of those pieces that you'll often hear about and read about and expect from a Volkswagen are there. It does all those things as expected. The interior is a nice place to spend time. All this is soft, rubberized stuff. The seats are leatherette of some sort. They're some kind of vinyl. But they feel as good as most low-quality leathers do. And this stuff's hard plastic, things that, covered cardboardy type material up here, but it's all fine. The layout of all of this is simple, and that's what sort of Volkswagen has come to be known for as far as interiors go. It's all black and gray in here. You can also get this one. This is the dark blue exterior color with a tan interior. This is titanium black, because titanium and black make a lot of sense together as far as interior colors go. I guess maybe this is the titanium piece and this is the black, not really sure. You get a decent amount of storage space in here. Down here there's a big space for your wallet or whatever, your phone. It's actually a flip down door up here that I've attached my homemade iPhone mount to, and that's been working out as a decent place to store it. Up front there's only one 12-volt outlet, which we're taking up with our radar detector. There is a second 12-volt outlet that's behind the rear seats, which is a bit handy because at least I can route it up here and still get power to my iPhone. This one, with the nav system, also has in here a iPhone connection cable as part of the kit. The issue I have with this thing is it's a giant plug, and with all of the cases I have, I'd have to take my iPhone out of my case to ever be able to plug that in. Also, I'm not a person who gets into the car, plugs in my phone, and keeps it in here. I hate to say it, but when I'm stopped at a traffic light, I want to be able to pull it out and take a look at it. Again, it's important to note that the driving dynamics of this thing are very good. It rides well, it corners flat, has very little brake dive. It's a pleasant thing to go take around on your favorite back road. I think the biggest compliment that I could give it is the fact that I have an aunt who's been looking at a smaller, compact car for the city, but that's also sporty. And Mini was a little bit too small, so she's been really stuck on either buying a Golf or a GTI. And I can say after having this for a week, I would start to recommend this for her. And the reason why is the higher ride of this, the nice part is getting into and out of it. You don't feel like you're falling into it when you sit down and you're climbing out of it when you get out. And I understand that's probably the appeal of the compact sport utility across the board. You're not sitting on the ground, you get a little higher driving position. But the difference in this one is I really do feel like you give up very little from a driving dynamics perspective over, say, a GTI. Now, that's probably because the GTI is not the sharpest thing anymore. That there's other compact sporty cars that really are sharper than a GTI these days. So with this, it's something that's easier to get in and out of, but probably gives you 92% of the driving dynamics of a GTI with just as much utility, if not more. On the highway, unlike the wonderful Pennsylvania road construction we're stuck in right now, it's a quiet, comfortable ride. It'd be a good long commute car if you needed one. Being that this is Volkswagen's soft roader off-road model, and in Europe they actually sell this as a true off-road model with better, approach and departure angles. Here's one of the very few maintained dirt roads in Pennsylvania. And I'm on this to point out the fact that if you're considering one of these, I think it's a reasonable choice depending on what you're looking for. But I would highly recommend it in the all-wheel drive version. And the reason for that is this little 2-liter turbo makes enough horsepower that it will just overpower the front wheels. Even on dry roads, it has enough torque to really spin the front wheels. If you're interested to know our impressions of the stereo and the navigation, all those things that we're sort of bucketing under infotainment, I'm going to put up a separate review of that, and in a lot of ways it's going to be our dry run for our larger infotainment series that we're planning to do with almost all of the manufacturers out there. So there's our take of the refreshed for 2012 Volkswagen Tiguan. I'm Kevin Gordon from AutoSavant.com. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.